Hi everybody, welcome to the pit. Today's DIY project that we're doing is a shelf with a hidden compartment. I got this idea from another video and I want to actually give that guy credit because it was a really good video. I think it was the King of Random did something they called a stealth shelf or something. This is basically the same thing. I'm doing mine a little differently. It's got a little bit different dimensions. I'm making it a little bit bigger. I'm going to use some different stuff that they didn't use, just a different take on it. Theirs is a real good video, and if you want to make that one, I'd go check that video out. They got a great channel. We've cut our wood, and right now I'm going to show you the pieces that we have laid out here. We have one 48-inch by 11 1/4, one 42-inch by 8 3/8, one 42-inch by 2 1/2, and two 6-inch by 2-inch pieces that are just notched at a 45-degree angle. These two were just basically triangles that I cut out of scrap, and we may need 3 or 4 depending on how many locks we decide to use. So some of the other things you're going to need for this project are a locking mechanism. We're going to use magnetic locks. We're going to put a light bar inside, an LED light bar. It's motion activated, so when it opens up, it'll light up. Hinges, I've heard you can get packs of 2 for $6. I can't find them. One of these is a little more than $6, and got to buy 2 of them. So one 8-foot long piece of crown molding. So this is not 8 feet long, this is 4 feet long. I had them cut it in half so that I could get it home, and that's actually the size I need for one of the pieces. It does have to be 4 1/2 inches, so you'll want the type of crown that goes on a ceiling. If you notice the 2 angles there. This was also 8 feet long before we cut it. It's 1 inch wide, and this is just a rope design. Hopefully you do have most of the tools, but you may not have a Forstner bit, for instance, if you're not a woodworker. You're probably going to buy a couple of small things that you may not have already had. Hopefully you have a sander, you have a miter saw or a chop saw or something like that, table saw. If you don't, just buy the shelf. From here to the next step, I have a lot of sanding to do before I get to it. So I'm going to sand these things down quite a bit and get them smooth as glass, or as smooth as I can possibly get them, before assembling the shelf. The first thing that we're going to do, now that we've got all the pieces cut out except for the crown molding, is we're going to take the 2 1/2 inch by, I think it was 42, and attach the 2 6-inch by 2-inch pieces to that. Crown molding, that's the next step, and I did it before I realized that I hadn't recorded it. As the shelf sits, this is the bottom. Just mark the bottom of the crown on each side, and you'll want to cut the 45-degree angle on each side of the wood. So when you make your cut, the top of the crown molding is actually going to be touching this part of the saw. The back is going to touch this part of the saw. All I'm going to do is just shoot some brads in there to kind of hold that down while it dries. We'll obviously go over those little holes with putty before we stain, so you won't even notice them once we're done. So as you can see, we've got the crown molding on the bottom of the shelf. It's all done. This portion is ready. And the next step is going to be to do the top of the shelf. To conceal the fact that it will open, we've bought 1-inch rope, which is going to basically hang down over bottom of the shelf. So to do this is a little easier than the crown molding because it's flat on the back and you don't have to worry as much about having it lined up. You do have to cut 45-degree angles, and you do that basically the same way as what we did before. just line up the 45 with the front of the shelf. Good and sure we're lined up. And make a mark on the back there. And that's a good piece for that side. So we just need to do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Now, the next piece is for the front. Again, cut a 45. The next step is to actually attach this stuff to the front and sides of the top of the shelf. For right now, we'll put some glue on there, pop a brad in it in the middle, and then work its way down. We're not going to go every few inches. We're only going to go just enough. We want the glue to be holding this on. The brad is just simply to make sure that the glue has a chance to do its job. So now we're ready to do the sides. We're just going to pop these on. This is what the complete shelf will look like unfinished. If you look at it, it looks like, you know, a mantle or just basically one piece. I'm not by any means a professional woodworker or mechanic or anything like that. I'm just doing this kind of on the fly. So all my cuts weren't exact. I didn't even worry about it. And I just puttied with wood putty the corner to make it look like one piece. Now I'll sand this down and it'll be smooth and look like one piece of wood there. It's all wood putty from there to there. This is wood, this is wood, this is putty, this entire part. Now the next thing we're going to do is obviously put it together. So we need to put some hinges in it. What you really want to look for is a full overlay. This is a frameless full overlay hinge, so it'll be concealed inside. There'll be no exposed hinge on the outside of the shelf at all. One thing you need to pay attention to with these hinges is you need to extend them to the fullest length that they'll go, just by unscrewing those and sliding this out to the very edge, and then tightening them back up. One good thing with hinges is they come with templates. I didn't like the templates they came with, but I used them anyway. The reason I didn't like the templates they came with is because there wasn't a 1 3/8 inch like the Forstner bit that we're using. For some reason they put a different size in there, so I don't know. As you can see, the bit is actually bigger than not only the template but the side of the edge of the card there, so I'm not even sure what that's all about. Where you want to place these hinges is about 3.5 inches from each side of the shelf, and as far as how far back they go, anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 inch should work. I marked that with a pencil, as you can see over here, and I simply put the edge of the card, slid it right up from the 3.5 inch mark to the 1/4 inch mark, which is right there. I put the Forstner bit in the middle, and I just pressed down until I got a hole there to mark the spot where I want to drill. We did this side already. As you can see, it fits right in there. If you're not using a drill press especially, it will be very, very easy for you to go at an angle and get that wrong. So you want to make sure that you're doing this right. Okay, so that's not even quite 1/2 inch, 3/8. That's probably about as close as we're going to get it. I'm going to just take that. Gotta love poplar because it is just right for taking wood screws without much hassle. And we're just going to do the same thing on the other side, basically, which we've already done. We've already marked it. So now we're going to attach the hinges and actually build the remaining part of the shelf. The easiest way to do this is just to take the support bracket for the shelf, rest it up under the hinges, everything standing up on its end. Then we're going to take the actual top of the shelf and we're going to just kind of line it up and gently close the shelf flush, which should line the hinges up exactly where they need to go. There you have it. The hinges are now in the exact place they need to go. Screw them in, and then we'll attach the top part of the shelf. When I put this on a flat surface, on its end, 100% make sure when this bracket is against the wall that the shelf opens without hitting the wall. And as you can see, the bottom edge does not hit that flat surface as it opens. So it's not going to gouge our wall when it opens up. Right now, we've already assembled the shelf and we've got it all apart now. And the reason I've got it all apart now is I'm ready to stain it. We're going to start off with our wood conditioner, put that on there, some stain, and then we'll go through the finishing process and show you all that when we're done. So earlier in the video, I said you were going to need 2 wooden triangles and we were going to use magnetic locks, scratch all that. They're going to need 1 wooden triangle, and we're not going to use magnetic locks because we tried them and I really don't like them on this size of a shelf. We had them on there, they just didn't work very well. They probably do work on a smaller shelf, so if you're building a smaller shelf, maybe that's the way to go. You're learning with me. We're doing this for the first time, so not only are you learning how to build the shelf, you're learning how to correct your mistakes if you make them. We actually had to use a oscillating tool to get that off, cut right through the brads. We were using 1 triangle, but I didn't use this out of scrap because I did find out that the smaller triangles were not quite as good at holding screws even when pre-drilled as they should have been, and I just didn't like them. I didn't think they were sturdy enough for this size shelf. So I actually went and got a little 2x2 of poplar, cut a little piece of it off, and made my triangle out of that instead. This is my new locking mechanism that we are using. I just got this online from Amazon. It's an RFID lock. So basically, this will sit right on there like that, and this will be on the lid. It will close down and lock. And to unlock it, so after you get to the point where you are ready to accept that the wood is as good as it's going to get, or as good as you're willing to accept, then we're going to move on to finishing, which for me doesn't start till I get down to about a 220 grit sandpaper. And the first process after that is to wipe the wood down with a tack cloth to get all the fine particles off. The first process in what we're going to apply is actually wood conditioner. Now, once this goes on, and the purpose of this is just so that your stain doesn't go on and look blotchy. And after you apply it, you're going to wipe it on, wipe it off, and basically wait anywhere between 15 minutes but no more than 2 hours before you apply the stain. That's what we're going to do now, and about probably 20 to 30 minutes later I'm going to apply stain and then wipe it off. now that the wood conditioner has been on for about 30 minutes or so, we're going to use stain. Got a sponge here to put it on, and I'll leave it on for just a few minutes, and then I've got another sponge for taking it off. Again, with this process, you could use anything. You could use a rag or a sponge, or you could even probably use a paper towel, as long as you didn't let it shred all over your work. And you should see with this, we're using a red mahogany here, stain. It's pretty dark. Wipe it down, and you should see a very even look in the wood. See quite an even look there. So we're ready to put the polyurethane on. This is what I'm using for the first couple coats. I'll actually brush on the last coat or the last two coats. But to get this started, I'm going to do this. It's just fast drying. We're going to spray it on. We've already given this one coat. And that's our first coat. We'll come back and do a second coat. You have to do the second coat within 2 hours. If you don't do it within 2 hours, then you have to wait about 3 days. So I'm going to come back here about an hour and a half and do a second coat. And then we'll probably do a light sanding before our next coat using 300 grit. Take a close up of the scratches. this is the completed project. We ran into some snags and worked them out, and again, I'm making mistakes, so you don't have to. There we go. Once you find it, it opens up pretty nice. The only thing I haven't done is mount it on the wall, and I haven't configured my magnets yet. If you're using a long gun, you might want to invest in some of these. They're stingers. The nice thing about these is they have really strong magnets to hold the gun. If you put your trigger right there, it guards it, so you don't, nothing goes off when you're grabbing at the weapon. They will work with handguns or long guns if you didn't want to use those. I got these. Double-sided tape to stick them on, and then you screw in once you have them in place where you want them to go. It's all ready. We're going to mount it to the wall, and once again, guys, if you like it, subscribe and like the video for me. And I want to give credit to the guy that did that I saw the video and got the idea from. It was the King of Random. They built a smaller shelf, and I just basically adapted what they did and added some things that I liked. I liked the gas shocks. I wanted a longer shelf, and I also did an RFID lock instead of the magnet locks, just because of the longer shelf, the weight worked out that way better. Hope you like the video, and good project going for you guys.